Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Far Post podcast presented by the ESports Gaming League. I'm Elizabeth Pehota, joined by my co-host Jeff Lemieux for a very special edition of the podcast. We have a lot to talk about as the Refs continue their reign atop the Eastern Conference and have won 4 straight games at home. However, this is a special episode because we have an amazing guest joining us to give us an in-depth look ahead to this weekend's match at FC Cincinnati. Please welcome Alex Stec to the show, FC Cincinnati's Director of Digital Content. You guys might know her from her current role at FC Cincinnati, but you may have also seen her at Yellow at Columbus Crew previously. Alex, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to chat with you guys. I'm looking forward to the game this weekend. And yes, I'm still trying to get rid of some of the yellow in my closet. I seem to have too much of it.
We're going to talk about all that later in the show, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. I feel like the wardrobe colors definitely depend on which teams you're with. You probably have a lot more blue and orange than you had before you joined FC Cincinnati, right?
Yes, definitely more blue than orange. I think it's a little bit more flattering of a color, but yes, I do have a lot of blue and orange now.
I agree. And we can all agree that blue is a great color, considering blue is one of the Refs colors as well.
Fair enough.
Well, we have a lot of fun. Oh, sorry, Jeff.
I was just going to say, before we fully dive into stuff, I know you get introed obviously as the Director of Digital Content, but I think people also kind of understand that you wear many different hats with FC Cincinnati. Obviously, you're also an on-camera personality, kind of serving as a club reporter. You're involved with the broadcast as a sideline reporter. I feel like half the time I see you on the sidelines, you have a camera in your hands. So before we delve in and start talking about FC Cincinnati and kind of previewing the game on Saturday, just give people a little bit of an overview. Yes, you are the Director of Digital Content, but what is everything? How do you kind of encompass everything you do for FC Cincinnati?
Well, it's tough to say. I mean, you listed a lot of things that I do. I don't want to take up the whole time here going through job responsibilities, but I have tried to take kind of a step back from kind of the shooting and editing side of things for photography. So now it's just kind of when it's needed. You know, if we're on a road trip and we only have 2 people traveling, if someone's shooting video, then I can pick up a camera, I can shoot photos. So no problem. But we have Matt Chisler, TC Brewster. So they're also creators of our digital content. They do an awesome job. So as much as possible, I try and hand it off to them and say, hey, you guys take it, you got it. And just kind of focus on the bigger picture of things, kind of proofing everything, but working with other departments on what kind of content are we putting out, what's the messaging, what's the objective, you know, what's, if there's a theme for a game or something, whatever it is, what kind of content are we producing? Same thing with different storylines with the team. So I'm in a great role where I have these great relationships with the players, the coaches, and I get to learn their stories. And that's one of my main objectives is how can I help tell their stories, share their stories, and get the fans to know these guys both on and off the field. So that's always been my biggest objective, no matter what my title is, what my role is, but just kind of having this representation of the club to get our story out there to the community, whatever people are getting involved in. And then also just the soccer knowledge side of it. That's something that I'm super passionate about, that I loved, that I think you get when you play the game and it never leaves you. So that's one of the things I'm most passionate about. But yeah, I've been doing sideline reporting. So it's a lot of fun. It's better when you win. So last game, the questions after the game were a lot easier. But yeah, I wear a lot of hats. I think from November to April or something, I was running the website because it's just, you need to step in wherever the team needs you. And so I'm happy to do whatever people need me to do.
True team player that wears all the hats. I love that. Yeah. The versatile player that can, you know, start being the starting lineup, come off the bench and just play wherever the coach needs you, right?
Don't put me in center midfield. I can defend a little bit, but definitely don't put me between the posts either.
All right, we will keep that in mind. Speaking of storytelling, you mentioned that FC Cincinnati is coming off of that 2-1 win over Montreal this past weekend, which was the first win of the campaign. What were the emotions behind the club as you as a storyteller kind of got to tell all of those great storylines coming out of it?
Yeah, I mean, it was great. It was amazing. You saw the coaches jump off the bench. Everyone was celebrating with one another. It's just incredible to see that. And it's rewarding because you're out at training every day. You see the guys putting in the work and something goes wrong every game. Something happens where it doesn't click. It doesn't work out. And if you watch the game, I mean, Pehota misses this point blank shot across the mouth of the goal. And you're like, how does he miss that? Everyone's talking about how does he miss it? Well, we got lucky in that instance, but still it's sometimes you just have to be on the other side of luck, because how many times have we been on the other side of it and see, oh my gosh, how did that happen to us? How did we hit the crossbar that many times? So to see it actually go the other way was so rewarding. You see Gustavo Vallecilla score his first goal. Ronald Matarrita scored or has a couple of assists. Once again, like he's been assisting for us really, really well, serving in those balls. So, and Jurgen Locadia, who hasn't scored in a very long time, since his debut last year, can't count the PK in the MLS is Back tournament. So to see these guys score, it was incredible, but I think just so rewarding for the players, the coaching staff. I interviewed Caleb Stanko after the game, and even before we got on camera, he's standing there talking to me going, I'm just so happy right now. I have so many emotions right now. This feels so good. And this team hasn't come back at 35, 36 games, maybe come from behind. So that was the biggest thing, to show that resilience, to have that come from behind victory, say, hey, we got this, we can do it, keep pushing, and get the 3 points was huge.
You mentioned coming from behind. Could this win be used as a catalyst to kind of get the team in a mentality to go forward?
I think so. I mean, it's tough to say because they're set piece goals, but the opportunities were there also. So I think these guys are clicking more and more. I think that's one of the tougher things is you look at the two center backs, Gustavo Vallecilla, Jeff Cameron, and then also Kenneth Vermeer has started the last 2 games. So these past 2 games, these guys had never played together before. And then they didn't play the full 90 the first game against Miami, the home opener, but this last match, I believe they all stayed in the full game. So these guys just kind of getting to know each other, right? And it's tough. You're out there and these are important positions where you have to be organized, you have to communicate. So as they get more and more comfortable with one another, I think that'll be really, really helpful. So then when you have someone like Gustavo put the ball in the back of the net, that's only going to bring his confidence up. I think the attacking side of things, these guys are already clicking. You see them working together, and when they get going, when these passes start flowing and they get into a rhythm, it's impressive to see. So I hope that it does motivate these guys and build some confidence moving forward.
I'm sure it will. And you mentioned Gustavo Vallecilla's goal. It was the game winner and his first goal only in 2 appearances. So as a defender that can get forward and only, a small sample size, what have you seen from him so far that makes him so dangerous?
So Gustavo's, he's good with the ball at his feet, which is important to, especially to Jaap Stam, the style of play that he wants. Same thing with Kenneth Vermeer as the goalkeeper. Like these guys, even with Przemysław Titan, when he's in as well, they're both good with the ball at their feet. Jeff Cameron is an incredible defender. He sees the plays kind of before it happens too. So I would say Gustavo, he's a tall guy. He's going to be threatening. If you watch the play, he just kind of reads it really well and he goes after it. He says, like, I'm going to get my head on this ball and I'm going to make something happen. So I think you have those guys that are going to be dangerous on set pieces. I don't think that there's anything in particular other than, big bodies that you get in front of the goal and just have determination to try and win it and hopefully put it in the back of the net.
Alex, you mentioned the emotion from the coaches at the final whistle on Saturday, that win over Montreal. And I know it was obviously so difficult last year for Jaap Stam coming in, and it's just such a bizarre season. And you're trying to kind of build something somewhere new and build a culture and everything, but in the midst of this absolutely bizarre, unprecedented season. So what have you seen in terms of, even though I know some of the results haven't always been there for Cincinnati this past year, what kind of culture has Jaap Stam been able to build within this group of players?
So I think he just wants the guys to get to believe in themselves, but he also, if you watch a training session, like there's a lot of detail put into it. And it's like that with the film sessions as well. They're longer sessions. And when you're sitting out there watching, you say, oh, wow, this is a long training session. But it's because when you'll set up in a formation and say, okay, well, if the opposition goes here, you go here. If they do this, you do this. And so they're doing that in film sessions, and they're doing it on the field as well, where they want to show all the different scenarios and say, these are the things that could happen. So they want to make sure that the guys are prepared for that. I think that they have this belief in the players, but also the guys that are coming together. I think it's helped a lot bringing in some of the guys from South America too. Got 10 players overall that are speaking Spanish. So to kind of develop that chemistry, a lot of them feel more comfortable when they have these guys around them, that they're able to, you feel just more comfortable overall when you have people that have similar, cultures, and overall just communication is easier. So I think it's been a very tough transition for Jaap. He comes in, a lot of the players weren't players that he selected or that he brought in. So adapting to those guys, and especially as of late, he's done a better job of figuring out where these guys fit where they are in the system. You know, Alan Cruz last year, I think at some point he played the number 10 role. Well, Alan's not super comfortable there. It was more of just who was available personnel wise to try and slot someone in there. But now if he's playing more of as a 6 or an 8, you know, whatever formation we're playing, he's more comfortable, he's going to be more effective. So just finding what works overall as you bring the pieces together. And I think that's coming together more and more, and Yap's getting a hold of that.
Clear that a lot of the pieces are starting to click, especially from that performance over the weekend. But Cincinnati has had a bit of a tough stretch, but luckily they are able to find things that are starting to gel. What's kind of kept the group motivated throughout that time?
I think just belief in one another. Obviously, everyone wants to win, right? At the end of the day, you want to go home with 3 points. But I think that the fans have been so inspiring from the beginning, and they're not okay with mediocrity. You know, there's not going to be this acceptance. You finish in the bottom of the table the last 2 seasons. People are not okay with it. They let their voices be heard, but also the guys who have been here from the beginning or who have joined the team, they don't want to lose. They don't want to be seen as, oh, we're not a good team. They want to go out, they want to compete, they want to win. And you have some of these guys that are just so competitive that at the end of the day, like even if they score a goal and we lose, they're still upset because they're saying that this isn't good enough. This isn't, I wanted to win. And same thing with the draw. And I love that competitiveness. I'm sure it's similar across every team in MLS where, nobody wants to lose, but you see that from this group, and it's inspiring. And I think that the fans help with that. So the more home games we have and the more fans that we're allowed to have, I think that they can feed off of that as well.
Speaking of the fans and being at home, SC Cincinnati has the new digs at TQL Stadium, and the Revs are going to be the second ever opponent to visit your new venue. So what were your emotions when the stadium opened, and what was it like to kind of have that grand opening?
It was amazing. Honestly, thinking back on it, everyone tells you, make sure you take a moment for yourself. Make sure you take a moment to just look around and soak it all in and experience what's happening and just live it. And because you're running around frantically, you want to make sure everything's going perfectly, everything's right. You're helping people who have questions. But I think it was like 880 days from the groundbreaking to the first game that we hosted there. So to be there from the first day and to just see this, it's just dirt everywhere, this whole field. And we kept doing construction updates and we'd go out there and, they'd say, oh, we're doing all this stuff like underground and use all these technical terms. I'm like, oh yeah, that's really cool. Can you say that in English for me? Like, I don't understand those terms. So, but to try and tell people, oh, look at the progress. Well, as we got busier and, we went to preseason stuff and we'd come back, and just the amount of progress that was made every time we came back was impressive. It was amazing. And then you see the fins on the outside being lit. I mean, you guys get to come see this stadium. You're going to be blown away. I think anyone is just amazed at, this is a stadium in Cincinnati, Ohio. Like, what? This is incredible. And one of the coolest things is the proximity of every single seat to the field. It sounds like a sales point, but you are so close to the field. And I think one of the most exciting things on that Sunday was how loud it was. And there were only 6,000, about 6,500 fans there. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, this is going to get louder. This is going to get louder. And on Saturday, it'll be about 11,000 people. So almost twice as many. So if you guys are coming, you have to be prepared. It's going to be very loud, but I can't wait till it's all 26,000.
I will be there. And that was going to be my question was, you mentioned more and more fans coming in. What is the capacity going to be on Saturday? Sounds like you were at about 50% for this weekend.
Yeah. 11,000. So, I mean, the Bailey, they were amazing. Everyone's just chanting, but when that's like a full wall of people, I know it's the steepest incline that you're allowed to legally have in a stadium. So if you can picture just like this wall of people and the smoke, and when Nick Haglund, the hometown Cincinnati kid, scores a goal to equalize against Miami, it's 2-2. The place went crazy. I was like, oh my gosh, there's no way that you can record this and people feel the feelings that you have. You're getting goosebumps on the bench. So hopefully stuff like that happens this Saturday for us, but no,
I disagree personally, but that's fine.
Yeah. We can make it 2-1, but you're the guest, so maybe we'll count you twice and we'll just call it 50-50.
Fair enough.
Alex, I know that you've traveled around to a lot of other stadiums in MLS just throughout your career and the nature of your job. How does it compare, like similarities or differences from other stadiums around the league?
So it's funny, last time somebody, I think, made a joke. I wish I know who said it. But if LAFC and Red Bull Arena if they had a baby, it would be TQL Stadium. So it's kind of like a combination of the two. And honestly, those are probably, I haven't been to every stadium in MLS, but those are two of my top two in the league. Like they're very, very well done. They're well thought out. So it is kind of a combination, but the sound reverberates. I'm excited for the first night game too, so that people can see these lit fins on the outside. But yeah, it'll be really cool.
Let's get to a little talk heading into this weekend's game. With regards to Cincinnati, what are the strengths and weaknesses for that side, that, in your personal opinion?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I talked about the weaknesses a little bit, just where these guys haven't had like a ton of experience, a ton of time working together. Whereas I feel like the Revs, you guys have a lot of MLS veteran players, you know, guys that have been within the league. Not a ton of guys like that on the roster and starters, but when the attack gets going, these guys are lethal. I mean, you have Lucho Acosta, like he's such a difference maker. It's unbelievable. He was out for a couple games, but seeing him come back into the game, he has an immediate impact. So he's so dynamic. He's such a catalyst. I'm really excited to see Brenner get more involved. I think he has a lot to offer. He's very talented, very smart striker. But I think he's also, you know, getting used to the league a little bit. It's tough. It's tough to get used to MLS. A lot of guys, Yuya Kubo, when I talked to him during preseason, said, you know, he didn't expect it to be as physical as it was. And I think that's the case for a lot of guys. It's physical. And then you also have some of the travel, and you need to be very fit. You need to be running the whole time. So it's a tougher league than a lot of people realize when they're coming from Europe, when they're coming from different countries, and they come here and say, oh, okay, this is a lot harder than we thought it might be. But Alvaro Barreal, to see him score like against Miami, his goal was beautiful. And I think he's someone who has tended to get involved. And when he does get involved, he can be very dynamic. There have been a couple games where he's a lot less involved, and it's not as apparent that like the team is threatening from all different areas. But when he gets involved, he mixes in with Joe Zhao on the wing. Those guys combine, you know, you have fullbacks that like to get forward. So when you have all these pieces getting involved in the attack, I think that's when the team can be the most dangerous. It's just being careful, you know, when you're throwing all those numbers forward, okay, who's covering back? So yeah, I think that the guys are developing well together, but when they're on, it's impressive to watch.
One of the guys who you have mentioned a little bit earlier is Jeff Cameron, who obviously there's some interest in this area of the country because he is from Attleboro, Massachusetts, just about 10 miles up the road from Gillette Stadium. So a local boy, and obviously a lot of Revolution fans know him from his time with the U.S. national team as well. And I know he came in and pretty much immediately jumped into the fray. Seemed like he had a couple training sessions before he was on the field and leading that back line. So how instantly has he kind of settled in with the group, and what kind of role has he taken up as a leader, even though he is brand new in that squad?
I mean, I really admire Jeff, and I'm thrilled that he's a part of this squad. He's someone whose career I followed, you know, same thing where he was with the national team. And I think he's done an excellent job fitting in very, very quickly. So, you know, he came from QPR. He wasn't playing like the last few games, and that's just because they knew he wasn't going to continue there, that he was going to come back to MLS. So you kind of fall out of favor with the coaching staff. So I think the game fitness was the tough thing, that very first game. He's jet lagged. He had one full session with the team, was doing film separately from everyone because COVID restrictions, you're not allowed to be with the team. So he was with them for one day, and then goes into that game and breaks up play, has an immediate impact. One of my favorite things was seeing him in the photos of the goal celebrations, being one of the first guys, and on the video too, like one of the first guys celebrating. I'm like, didn't you just meet these guys? Like, it was amazing to see that. That's what you want to see from your teammate. I think he's a leader. I think he's not afraid to speak his mind. Like if he you know, wants to demand more, or if he disagrees with something, like I think that he's just going to be very well spoken and a guy that people look up to. And he's here. He wants to win. He's excited about it. And I think he wants to prove himself too. That's one of the things he mentioned was, I still have so much more to offer. And I was like, I'm not saying that you don't, you know, I think you do. Because I said, what do you think you can bring to this team? And he's like, I still have a lot to offer. And so I do think he has a lot to offer. And it's unfortunate, you watch that Miami game, the last goal that they score. So there's a turnover in the attacking half. We have numbers forward. Jeff had just been cramping like the play before. So he's basically on one leg running back. And you're like, this guy just got off a plane. He's jet lagged. He's playing 90 minutes right now and hasn't played in the game for a while. So it was very demanding for him to be in there and play that full amount of time. But I mean, he shows like a just never die attitude and is out there to fight. I asked him about playing with Kenneth Vermeer, their first game together. And I said, how do you know if a goalkeeper comes out, if they're going to come off their line, if you don't know his tendencies, you've never played with him, or if you need to head it and clear it? And he goes, oh, you just go in no matter what, go for the ball and just expect that you're going to get smashed, but you got to get it out. You got to do your job. I said, that's the perfect mentality. That's what you got to have as a center back.
Alex, you've talked a lot about different components of FC Cincinnati's lineup. Are there any player matchups in particular that you're looking forward to seeing between the Revs and Cincinnati this weekend?
Well, if Matt Turner plays, I'm excited to see his matchup with Brenner. No, I do think like Carlos Seal has been a player that I've watched throughout, like, just these past couple of years. I was bummed when he got hurt, but to see him, like, he was such an important player to the playoff run last year. Like, he's really, really impressive and a fun player to watch, that I think even if you work for another team, you play for another team, you're watching him, you're like, hey, he's a fantastic player. So I'm glad that he signed a contract extension. That's exciting. But he's so dynamic. So I'm curious to see actually who the Revs play. I know there's an international break coming up, but also, do you rest any people? Like, do you rest Gustavo Bo against Cincinnati? Do you put Books up there? So I think it depends on who plays overall. But I am interested to see how this back line kind of handles Heel, to see if our midfielders have to drop in a little bit more. I know you guys kind of switched the 4-2-3-1 as well, which I think is just more effective overall, but Bruce Arena knows what he's doing. He's a very, very talented manager. So I think, yeah, it'll be a good matchup, but who's the other one? I think, Andrew Farrell too, just an MLS veteran going up against another guy like Brenner. If he's up there, someone who has less experience in MLS, getting used to the league, and just someone who's been around for a long time. So I'll be interested to see how it plays out.
Well, it's incredible. You look down, the list of kind of legends that have played with the Revolution. You think of names like Taylor Twellman and Shawry Joseph and Steve Ralston and Jay Heaps and all these guys who were such critical components of those legendary teams through the middle 2000s. And Andrew Farrell, at 29 years old, is on pace later this season to become the Revs' all-time leader in minutes played, games started. And it's just remarkable because he's at 29. He is in that conversation. Like, he is already one of those legends on this team.
That's amazing.
When that came up quick on us too, like all of a sudden we didn't realize that Andrew was near the top of those lists, because he's 29, and you just don't think of a guy at 29 surpassing guys like Shawry Joseph and Taylor Twellman and Steve Ralston in these lists, but he is. And before we move on from roster related stuff, I got to mention, because you got some of our former New England guys in Cincinnati. And even there was an Instagram post last night. Cody Cropper and Edgar Castillo were out to dinner in Cincinnati. They knew each other, obviously, from their time in New England. I just want to make sure that Cody and Edgar are treating you well out in Cincinnati. They are.
They're very good guys. I will say there are certain players who always make an effort to say hello to you, to give you a fist bump, and those are definitely two of those guys. They're very, very easy to talk to. I love talking to them about Cincinnati, like recommending different restaurants and stuff, and they're open to trying them. So great guys. Edgar, I got to meet in preseason and was really excited to watch him and then kind of see him earn a contract and sign. I think he's just a reliable, kind of backup to have on the wing or, at fullback position. So he's done really, really well. And yeah, Cody Cropper's, he cracks me up. He's a funny guy. he's funny. He's good. And he's just fitting into the GK Union.
Cody's always good for a laugh.
Yes. Yes.
There is a really unique aspect to this Revs in Cincinnati game. And Jeff, you're kind of a constant reminder of it. It's the Parley jerseys. And if you look at the jerseys too, the Revs kind of had one that's similar to their secondary kit. And you guys have one that's very similar with your color scheme as well. So what are your thoughts on the Parley jersey? Do you guys like it?
I love it. And everyone I've talked to loves it. And I think like every year they come out, they're awesome. This year is fire. I'm really jealous. I'm not wearing one right now. I think we're going to wear it when we shoot the preview, but no, I'm excited about it. And it cracks me up. We were really tempted to comment on someone like Columbus Crew's post, about like, oh, nice colors, guys. It is funny to see everyone wearing orange and blue, and it's perfect for us, but they're awesome. And I love what it represents, how it's made out of the recycled ocean plastic. I think that's so cool. I'm very into those things, supportive of being environmentally friendly and helping out how you can. Anytime I buy a pair of Ultra Boost or something, I want to get the parlay one. So I'm excited to see all the teams in them this weekend.
It was funny. I saw both of them, the home and away ones, before I knew which one we were wearing. But I knew we were in Cincinnati, and I saw the orange and blue. So immediately I was like, Cincinnati's got to be in the orange and blue one,
yeah.
right? But then I was like, it might have been kind of funny if we were wearing orange and blue at TQL Stadium. I think it worked out the right way.
Right.
But yeah, and I wasn't planning on wearing this today, but I happened to go pick it up yesterday, and I tried it on just to see how the fit was. And it's so comfortable. It is so light and airy. And I'm just telling all Revs fans, they're going quick at our pro shop.
Yes.
So get over there and pick them up while you can.
Same here.
I plan on picking mine up tomorrow. They're pretty sleek. I like them. And Alex, you just mentioned the whole Columbus Crew thing, and that, maybe you should comment that if they're wearing your colors. We talked about it briefly earlier, but you used to work for Columbus Crew, and now your path has led you to FC Cincinnati. What was the experience like transitioning from Columbus to Cincinnati as an expansion team?
The transition itself was tough, to be honest, very tough. No, I loved my time in Columbus. I love the people there. I still talk with them, and I thought it was really, really wonderful. A couple of weeks ago, so many people from the organization that are still working there reached out and wished me luck when we were opening the stadium. And they said, congrats, soak in this moment. Like, that was really cool. I was like, gosh, I've been in Cincinnati for almost 3 years. So for them to still reach out, that meant a lot. And so it's good people. I learned a lot there. I enjoyed my time, especially with Greg Berhalter. Like, you're going to learn a ton, very challenging stuff, but it was great. And then, joining Cincinnati, it's never easy to join your rival. The fans don't take it too well. Not all of them. Some of them were supportive. Others didn't take it so well, but no, for the most part, everyone understood. So it's been awesome. An expansion club, it's definitely challenging. I will say that, definitely challenging, because not everyone has experience within MLS, and you kind of expect people to know the league or know how things work, and it's not like any other league in the world. So it's very different. But I was really intrigued just by the fan base, the support, the amazing atmosphere. I was here at an Open Cup game and was like, oh my gosh, this is at a college stadium. Like, it was just so impressive how many people were there. And then continuing to watch the US Open Cup run. And I'm like, this team has something special. This city has something special. They have to get an MLS bid. And sure enough, it ended up that way. And so when you show up, it's kind of like, okay, you have a blank slate. What do you want to do? How do you want to tell this narrative? What is effective? What have you learned? And how can you apply it here? So you don't have kind of that stigma of, well, this is how it's done, or this is the way things have always been. Like, it's a fresh slate. So I think that's where, as much as you want to see the team succeed, it's also, it was interesting, but fun to join the team while it was still in the USL. It was very different experience than MLS, but it was entertaining for sure. And then you kind of get the whole team, like your digital team, the communications team, you get everyone on board with, okay, this is kind of how we want to do things. This is the way that we want to make things work. And so it was fun, we embraced it, but it was just a lot at once. You have the training facility that they're building. So we've constantly just had different things that are off the pitch that you show up and you say, okay, like, it's not just, we have a game this weekend. We have all these other things going on, and you're signing on new partners. And so it hasn't been slow at any point, really, and rebuilding the roster quite a few times too, to try and get new players. So the off seasons are busy with signings and stuff, but no, it's fun. I think in the expansion club, there's a lot of opportunity. I think people just have to have some patience, because it's tough, especially when you have different coaches that come in. And so this team really, really wants to get it right, and the fans want them to get it right. And but it's unbelievable, the support that this club has from its fans and from the city.
As the director of digital content, what's something that fans might not realize that you handle? You obviously wear a lot of hats, and people know you, I'm sure, mostly from your on-camera work, because that's where your face is seen, but you take on so much. So what's something that fans might realize that you handle?
Oh man, I don't know. I feel like, so we kind of talked about this at the beginning, where, I don't know, we talked about the different things that I do, but it depends. It does crack me up. Sometimes people will reply on Twitter and, or something, they think I'm tweeting, and I'm like, guys, how am I doing sideline reporting to the game and live tweeting. Come on, like that doesn't make sense. But I mean, maybe one of the things just along the lines of sideline reporting too, there's a lot of interviews and a lot of conversations that happen off camera that are never shared anywhere, just to get a better understanding of what these guys are going through, what their goals are, what, you know, the ins and outs of training and the preparation for the game, but also their lives off the field and understanding that kind of stuff. So those are a lot of things that don't typically, people don't see publicly. They may see like the end product or hear about it elsewhere, but so I think that's part of it. But yeah, I don't know that a lot of people know that I spend a lot of time shooting photos and editing. Like I mentioned, I tried to kind of step away from that. I have these awesome creators that have done a really, really good job, but I manage the, you know, content schedule to see everything that we have going on, but there's a lot of work just within other departments. That's something unique about our department, that we have conversations with everyone else within the organization, because at the end of the day, everything that we're putting out is going to be a reflection of the organization, and we're touching on all these different departments. So I don't know if that answers it, but I guess, yeah, just a lot of different things.
Well, it is funny. You mentioned some of the questions that you get, and I understand why people direct questions at, you know, people who are kind of faces of the organization. I get why people ask you questions about FC Cincinnati, and people ask Elizabeth and I any New England Revolution related question, but it'll be in the middle of the game and someone will tweet at me and be like, hey, like the broadcast is kind of, you know, blurry. What's going on with the broadcast? Or, hey, they ran out of this at the pro shop. Like, when's it coming back in? And I will do anything I can to get people the answers that they need. But at the same time, I'm like, there are things at this organization that I am not in charge of, I promise.
Right.
But I feel like everyone's just kind of like, well, we got a question, we'll ask Elizabeth or ask Jeff. And I'm like, I'm going to have to ask people for these answers. I don't know everything.
Yes. It's usually consists of screenshots of DMs and sending them along and trying to get people answers.
Directing them to the right person.
Yes.
Alex, you talked a lot about your team. I want to know, what's your personal favorite feature that you guys have put out as a department?
Gosh, that's such a hard question. Oh my gosh. I don't know. Which is crazy, because that's one of my favorite things, is just the content that we create. And I know you sent me this question and I didn't even, I was like, wow, that's a
okay.
really hard question. I don't know. I mean, I like that we have a broad span of the different things that we do. Like when we signed Brenner, it was just a silly idea that I was like, guys, what if we did a Tinder video? Like just something silly that then turned into something. And we actually got a lot of backlash from The Athletic. That was interesting. I don't know why, but I don't know. So it was something fun that like caught on, and that wasn't really a formal thing, but to be able to have a balance of things like that, to try and do an announcement video a different way, and to have it be fun. But I think something that was kind of cool was when we really first started too, just that inaugural MLS match, we kind of did like his story, like history. And we talked to several of the players, you know, like it was Adi, I think Nick Haglund, like you had all these different perspectives and different guys who had a different opinion of Cincinnati or a different tie to the city. So we talked with them, we did graphics, and then we also talked to fans. So I think that was kind of cool. Yeah, that's one that comes to mind. I know it was a long time ago, but you'll have to ask me this again sometime. I'll have a better answer for you. But yeah, no, this group, like, I credit to my team. They do an awesome job, and we put out some content that we're really proud of and really excited about.
There really is no better feeling from a digital department perspective than when you conceptualize something and you have a vision in your head for how it's going to come out. And it actually comes out that way, because probably the vast majority of the time you conceptualize something, it might go through the development phase and maybe it's just not coming off the way you thought it was going to, so you nix it. Sometimes you actually get to the process of shooting and editing it and it just didn't come across the way you thought it was going to. And you're like, oh man, that's a bummer. Now we make a decision, do we even push this out or not? But when you actually conceptualize something, you have a vision in your head of how it's going to look as a final product, and it actually comes out like that. Oh, it's incredible. Because we had a feature a few years ago where, you know, there's the whole thing with hockey teams warming up by playing soccer. You know, a hockey team warms up for their game by going and kicking a soccer ball around. So we had this idea of, well, what if a soccer team warmed up by playing hockey? So we put together, you know, this whole long form feature with a script, and we shot it kind of the Office style, where it was like our players were warming up for a game by playing hockey. And you're like, this could be awful. This could not hit at all. There could be people who just don't get this, but it hit. It came out really well. When you see the final product and it's actually what you envisioned, you're like, oh my God, thank God, because we put so much into this, and it might not have come off.
No, that is the best. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
And the other part of that too is like you need the players to buy into it too, because if the players don't sell it, then it might not come across like that. So there's just so many different components that people don't even realize, I feel like, goes into a lot of these features.
For sure. That is one of the toughest things is getting everyone to see the vision that you have in your head. And using that Tinder video as an example, I had to explain to our general manager what Tinder was. Like, he didn't know. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's no way he's going to say yes. Like, this is something, because you're signing, you know, this big name player, and you don't want it to be misconstrued. So I ran it by the agent. I ran it by, you know, our GM, because it's like, okay, if anyone is like, whoa, I'm not that type of guy, or we don't want this image of him or something, I'm like, that's not the intention. But no, everyone was on board, and I was like, gosh, I never thought I'd see the day where I had to explain Tinder.
Well, it's why trust is so important, right? Because so many times you have to say, trust me, this is going to work. It makes sense. I mean, we stuck Matt Turner in a Buddy the Elf costume and did Christmas features a few years ago. And like, to tell a player, hey man, you're going to be Buddy the Elf. Trust us. People are going to like this. And he was like, all right, yeah, whatever. And people loved those features, and people still kind of refer to Matt when he's, you know, he's Buddy the Elf. So we're like, thank God that came off, because we told this guy, trust us, it's going to work. And then thankfully it worked.
Well, and that inspired Matt after to take some acting classes, which was kind of like a byproduct. Like, I don't think he's still doing them, because I feel like we would have heard about it, but he definitely did mention to us after that. He was like, I think I could maybe, like, you know, try out the acting thing on the side.
That's amazing. That's great. You have to love when players have that buy-in. I know there have been a lot of ideas that we've thrown out there too. And I think that's one of the things I'm most excited about now that the stadium is built and it's open and we can start playing games, is that now we can kind of focus more on the storytelling element that honestly, I don't know that we've had as much time for as we wanted. Just when you're opening a stadium, it's not easy, because all of the free time that you have, or time outside of covering games, is about, you know, signing on new partners or opening a facility. So I am excited about that.
That's kind of what it felt like last year too, when we came back from the bubble, and you know, from August to November, December, it was like a game every 4 days. So any feature that you would have normally produced throughout the course of a week, where maybe you're looking at a guy's life off the field, maybe you're delving a little bit into a guy's personality, something a little more fun. There was no time for any of that last year. It was basically just game preview, game recap, game preview, game recap. Which makes the weeks, they go by quicker, I guess, but those, like, the creative juices don't flow quite as much, because there just wasn't any time to do any of that type of stuff.
Yeah, you're right.
Speaking of the creative juices, I know the digital landscape has totally evolved over even say like the last 5 years, but even more specifically during the pandemic. So as the director of digital content, how have you seen any kind of shifts in the digital landscape change?
Yeah, so I think it's always changing. I mean, it's changed over the last several years, and I mean, we still haven't hopped on the TikTok train, mostly because we don't have somebody to just handle that platform. You know, there's not necessarily like a monetary value for it for the club, and you have to build up a whole new follower base, and we can't use highlights. And I think that highlights are the main purpose of TikTok. But anyway, like, we did
unless you're the Galaxy and you just do it anyway.
Honestly,
breaking the rules.
We had this conversation yesterday. That's so funny. So yeah, like, okay, we just did a reel the other day. That was one of I think it was our first reel, just because we said, okay, this is something else that we need to look at, and that people are going to engage with. They had over 100,000 views. So it's like, okay, we should probably be focusing on this a little bit more. But you know, Snapchat was big when I was in Columbus, and now we don't use Snapchat. Like, it's very interesting how things change, but that was one of the biggest challenges that I think we actually did a really decent job of, was when the pandemic hit and we just all got together, had this meeting and said, okay, what are we going to do? What's our content plan? And we just bulleted all these different things of what would work. What can we get people to see? What can we get people to do? We started talking about recipes. Every week we had like a workout Wednesday, and we would this is shot by a player, because you can't be around them shooting videos. So you're then relying on them to do it. But getting their workouts at home.
Mm-hmm.
And then everyone back at, you know, normal people at their houses like us are like, okay, well, that player's doing that workout, I'm going to try it. And so just different things that we could do, you know, a happy hour, whatever it was, or just these interviews with players over Zoom, because that's what you have to do. But getting to know like what they're doing and still trying to have our fans get to know them, have a player takeover on your channel. So over the last year, I think that we had to get really creative with it, but it did provide a new opportunity of a different way to look at content. So it is funny, as we get back to normalcy, we can think about how we can actually do content again. And it is funny to think about, because you're like, oh, we're going to have a press conference and there's going to be people in the press conference and we can go back to live streaming that. And so just different things. But yeah, digital is always changing. It's ever evolving. So I think you have to be adaptable. You have to be flexible. And that's something that, you know, I really enjoy too, is just how it's an ever changing landscape. And, you know, everything's not always focused on broadcast, because you have all these streaming platforms now too. And how can we utilize those? So yeah, you're constantly learning. And in this field, you can never think, oh, I know what's best, because it's going to change quickly.
You mentioned getting back to normal, but then there are also changes that happened over the course of the past year that it feels like are probably going to stick around.
Yeah.
You know, our post-game media access used to all be in person, even when we were on the road. Mm-hmm. So if I traveled with the team and we had post-game media access, a lot of the times it was me and the head coach one-on-one. I would ask, depending on whether we won or lost. If we lost, I would ask 3 questions. If we won, I would ask a whole lot more. But that was always the scenario. Post-game interview access was pretty much me and the head coach one-on-one the vast majority of the time. Now, with the Zoom press conferences, we can have our entire media corps in every single post-game press conference at home or on the road. I'm not sure we're ever going back to just solely in-person road press conferences. If you can bring in the press who are at home via Zoom, I'd imagine we're probably going to continue doing that moving forward. So
I agree.
There were a lot of things we had to adjust to, but it changed stuff that we might not go back on everything.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I agree with you. I never loved having to be in those press conferences on the road after a loss or something, like somebody else ask a hard question.
Seriously.
Those are tough for sure. And then you have the beat reporter talking to the head coach on the phone on the bus ride to the airport. So yeah, Zoom definitely has its benefits. And we're able to record this podcast.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm telling you, a one-on-one interview as a club employee with Bruce Arena after a loss, knowing that you're going to get on the team bus with him right after the interview. It's not the funnest thing in the world. I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore.
Oh,
no.
Gosh, that's funny.
Yeah, not fun when someone looks at you like you have 2 heads, like, why are you asking me that question?
Trying to get the quote, man.
Alex, I know. Alex, before we let you go, I know that the Far Post podcast has probably been a huge highlight of your career so far. But other than this, what is maybe one of the favorite moments of your career, and also in tandem, your favorite interview that you've conducted throughout your career?
So I did think about this one a little bit more. But I will say, I think I've been really, really lucky to have some involvement with the U.S. women's national team. I look up to those women. It's funny because any player interview I've ever done, I've never been nervous or intimidated. You know, it's like, you're a person, I'm a person, and we're going to act normal. Like, I've never been starstruck. And until I interviewed players on the U.S. women's national team for the first time, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I look up to these women and they are just badasses. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but
you know, sure.
Like, oh, you're good.
They're amazing. So there have been multiple things that I've gotten to do with them to cover, you know, even in stadium hosting. That was so much fun. That was amazing for She Believes Cup. And you see all these girls that are just looking up to these women. And it's so inspiring because you're like, I was that girl. And now this is just, it's amazing to see them conquer all these different teams and just be the best in the world. And I think they're incredible. So we're really, really lucky. Rose Lavelle loves Cincinnati, and she has this passion for her city. She's an incredible person, and I love her personality. Like, she is a little awkward and embraces it. So she's hilarious. And just talking with her, like we did, so I think hers was one of my favorite interviews. I did get to host something at Fountain Square in Cincinnati when she brought the World Cup trophy, and it was like a ceremony celebrating her, congratulating her on winning the World Cup. And they named Rose Lavelle Day in the city. So I was able to host that on stage, and that was an amazing moment. And throughout the weekend, we did different videos, different times she's been back to Cincinnati, and there was a mural painted for her down in Cincinnati. That's one of like the cool things that we have also in the city, are all these murals on the walls. And walking up to the mural, we're shooting her on video, you know, and I'm kind of walking behind her, like, this is her moment, you know, you got to get her reaction and stuff. And she's like, what am I supposed to say? Can you walk with me? Like, just because anyone would be in that position, you're like, oh wow, this is so cool, but this is so weird, like, who am I talking to? And so I love how she is as a person. And so we've been really, really lucky to work with her. And the other person I think is Meg Whitman. So both women, both influential women, but Meg Whitman is one of our owners. When I found out she was coming on board, I was thrilled. I think she's just so influential. She's an incredible person, so accomplished and inspiring. So to just have those kinds of people around you, and to be able to have the opportunity to talk with them and to have a conversation with them for everyone to see, is an experience that I feel really, really lucky for.
Those are some great examples. Wow, the Rose Lavelle one just kind of hits home. We have Sam US who come on our pregame show before, and we've been in touch with our department. But that's really cool that you got to share that moment with her. Yeah,
they're all awesome. Sam US, she's great too. No, they're
I don't know why I remember this, but I literally remember the clip. I think you posted a clip when you were in front of the mural, and you asked Rose to like pose in front of, to do the pose that was in the mural or something, but instead she copied your pose instead of the pose on the mural.
Yeah. I'm so glad you remember that. I did. I was like, oh, and then like, could you do this face or something? So she goes like this. I don't know. I was like, no, Rose, like your face. Like,
I literally remember that because I thought that was hilarious.
And I was like, I hope she doesn't mind me posting this, but that is the epitome of her. I love her personality. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Alex, we've taken up enough of your time, but thank you so much for joining the Far Post podcast. We really appreciate it. Before we go, can you just tell Revs fans where they can follow you and stay up to date with your coverage if they're looking to get a little insight into FC Cincinnati?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I'd say follow FC Cincinnati, because I do a way better job posting content to our channels. And then mine is always a last minute afterthought where I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I should post that. But yeah, on Twitter, it's at Alex_Stec_. Didn't get my name quick enough, you know, even though I've been on Twitter for a minute. No, Instagram is @Stec, but yeah, follow FC Cincinnati. I wish this was like the weekly thing, guys. You do an awesome job. Seriously, you guys keep up the great work. I appreciate you having me on. This was fun.
Yeah, it was. I feel like it just turned into a conversation among friends. That was great.
All right. Well, thank you again, Alex. We appreciate your time, and we'll see what happens this weekend.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.